We're making the Narcissus now. And for the Narcissus, we want to prepare the stem ahead of time. We're using 26 gauge wire that's floral taped with a hook on the end. So you'll take your 26 gauge wire and your floral tape, stretch your floral tape just a little to activate the glue, which is on both sides of the tape. And you can take it and fold it over and mash it to get it started. And then twirling the wire between your hand and angling the tape downward, you wrap the stem. You wrap the wire with floral tape. You don't have to go too far down for the Narcissus because the Narcissus sits fairly close on the stem. Then I'm going to take some pliers. I could probably do this with my fingers because 26 gauge wire is not very stiff wire, but I'll show you with the pliers. Just fold over a hook, press in. It's about a 1/4 inch hook. Good. So I'll keep those at the ready. And I've got, these are Wilton's stems, yellow stems, Wilton's yellow stems. And I like to have these prepared ahead of time also. So I'm going to use my scissors. These are not scissors that I would cut gum paste with. These are just regular scissors that I use to cut stamens and cloth and paper and such. And I'm going to trim them to about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little less. Right over the garbage. Right over the garbage. So I'm going to trim those. And then keep those someplace where I won't forget where they were. There's 3 of them there. 3 of them there. I'm ready for my Narcissus petals now. So I'll take some white gum paste. This is nice and soft gum paste. And you don't need too much of this because your cutter, which is the PME freesia cutter, your cutter is not very big. So I'll probably use both of these pieces for both petals. Put some vegetable shortening in it and massage it just to get it working and pliable. It's a little sticky, so I'll put a little bit more vegetable shortening. If you use too much vegetable shortening, it does tend to pick up lint from around the workstation and your clothing. So you don't want to put too much vegetable shortening in there. And then I'm going to take this out of my petal pad. There's a coated side that I use to coat with vegetable shortening and a soft side that you can see is covered with white dust that I use for softening my petals. So I'm going to use the coated side, and on the second smallest hole, there's the smallest 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. On the second smallest hole, I'm going to put a little vegetable shortening around there. And now I want as much paste as I can to sort of worm down into that little hole. So I'm going to rock the paste back and forth in my hand to form a little bit of a cone there, and then squash that cone into the hole of the petal pad. Now I'll use my rolling pin and I'm going to roll the paste thinner. Get it going. Peel it away. And there I've got my little cone sitting up there. I'm going to put a little dusting, equal amounts of cornstarch and confectioner's sugar in a little pouch there so it moves freely around. And I want this to be just a little bit thinner. So I'll take my stick tool and I'm going to gently roll away from that coned edge out to make it just a little bit thinner there. It'll make for more delicate petals that will dry faster. And that'll be a nice feature for the Narcissus because sometimes you can actually almost see through their wafer thin petals. So I'm going to roll this much thinner and at least as thin enough to be able to cut out the petals. I'll center that knobby area in the center of the PME freesia cutter. Press down, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle to loosen it up. Flip over. Rub my fingers along the cut edge to make sure I've got a clean cut. And then I'll gently press it through. There we go. So there's my freesia shape. From here, I'm going to use this small stick again on the board, on a firm surface, and I'm going to widen the petals. And you'll see where it might be easier to see on this blue board. You'll see where it's a little bit wider here. So that's where I want to widen it. Just right about there, I'll press back and forth to widen it. And this will make your petal a little bit thinner too, which is always nice. So I just rock it back and forth just to widen it just a little bit. Now I'm going to vein these petals. I've got the small hibiscus veiner from the Gem veining set number 1. And this is nice because all the veins go in one direction up. They don't really splay out quite so much. So I'll put that there, and I'm going to vein flat side down. So flat side down, knobby side up. I'll use my little cosmetic sponge to press in quite firmly on all 3, like that, to make the veining. Now I'll take this over onto my softening side of the foam, and I'm going to soften the edges a little bit. So I'll use my small ball tool to soften the edges. I'm working from the center of the petal out to the edge. Center of the petal out to the edge. Center of the petal out to the edge. It gives it a little bit of curl, a little bit of movement, and it looks really nice there. Now I'm going to take this onto my cosmetic sponge, and I'm going to use a blunt toothpick. If you can see from this toothpick, I've snipped off the pointed end of it. And I snipped off the pointed end of it because I don't want it to poke into my gum paste. I want to make an indentation that you see in the Narcissus, but not necessarily poke it. So I'm taking the narrower side in towards the center, and I'm going to press to indent. Press to indent. I'll do all 3. 1, 3. Then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to use the end of the toothpick to curl up the petals and give them a little point, because Narcissus have a little point. So I'll do that to all 3 too. Right there in the center, curl up the edges and pinch to point. Curl up the edges and pinch to point. There we go. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to rest it in the second largest hole of the petal pad while I roll out my paste for my second set of petals.